Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Hamilton Report. I'm Scott J. Hamilton, your host, and I'm delighted that you are with us this evening, this Memorial Day. And it's hard to believe that it's already the 30th of May, the end of the month, which means that we are just over 4 weeks from the primary. I want to say a couple of things before we introduce our guest this evening. And one is that I am extremely proud of the Oklahoma Democratic Party staff. It's a small staff, and over the last couple of months, we've had to say goodbye to some wonderful employees. But that's what happens when you have young, talented people working with you. They're offered other opportunities and they move forward in their careers, and we wish them all the best. But we are hiring now, and I invite you, if you're interested in working for our party, to check out the job listings on our website at okdemocrats.org. Before we introduce our guest, I want to say a special word of thanks to our sponsor for the month of May, Better Call Saul Detailing. And we're going to take a quick listen to a word from our sponsor.
Don't have time to wash your car yourself? Tired of going to the automatic car wash and getting lackluster results? You better call Sal. At Better Call Sal Detailing, we treat your vehicle like it's our own, providing high-quality, meticulous detailing and cleaning. Ask about our exclusive pickup drop-off service for your convenience. Visit bcsdetailing.com for more information and set up an appointment today. Turn that neglected ride into a fresh new ride at Better Call Sal Detailing.
If you're interested in advertising on this broadcast or on our Chairs Daily Live, Monday through Friday at 4:15, simply send an email to info@okdemocrats.org. We would welcome your sponsoring us to help defray the cost of production of this show and all of our work on social media. Well, last week we heard from Madison Horn, and the week before that from Jason Bollinger, who are both running to represent Oklahoma in the United States Senate. Tonight, we welcome another candidate for that position, and it's my pleasure to welcome to the Hamilton Report, Joe Glenn. Joe, good evening, and thanks for joining us.
Oh, Scott, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, it's a busy time. You just finished school on Thursday of last week, and now here you are full into campaign mode. How does that feel for you?
Well, luckily for me, today when I did a radio interview up in Bartlesville, and now I'm with you, it didn't require that I have to get up any earlier than I was already getting up so I did not leave it. But yesterday we were in K County, so we are. It's going to be a very busy schedule, not necessarily busier than I've already been, but just different things.
Well, and I know that that's exciting. You've met a lot of Oklahomans over the last couple of months, haven't you?
I have. I've been all over probably 10 or 15 counties now, and certainly in events in Tulsa and the surrounding area. And so, yes, I have been making lots of Oklahomans from different walks of life and in different types of counties.
I think that's good for all of us from time to time, just to check in with our neighbors. And I'm sure you're hearing a lot of concerns that people have, particularly in that part of our state. What are the things that arise in conversations with people? What are they saying that they need from a senator?
Well, when I go to rural counties, which I've been concentrating on, they are concerned that they still do not have affordable rural broadband. They've been promised that for years. In fact, all of our congressional delegation run every 2 years or 4 years or 6 years promising affordable rural broadband. But it hasn't happened because they always vote no on infrastructure bills. So this is something that, rural broadband, as you know, is expensive, and a single company or even a group of companies are not going to be able to put the type of investment that is necessary to bring all the rural counties into affordable rural broadband. And so it's going to take the federal government, the Senate, the House, joining together and infrastructure bills that include proper funding for rural broadband, because either they haven't done it so far or they've done it and we're not taking the money. I'm never really sure with Oklahoma which that is.
I mentioned a few weeks ago on this broadcast that when I was traveling in Kenya, you can be 100 miles from the nearest town and still have superb internet access. Everyone has a cell phone, and it's just really fine connections. And the fact that we cannot do that in Oklahoma astounds me.
Well, my guess is that Kenya has invested a lot of their money from the government into accomplishing that goal, because it was important for them to communicate with all of their citizens, no matter where they lived. I think that the United States needs to put better emphasis on communicating with all the people, no matter where they live. And just because they love the rural life, and I applaud them for it, and in many ways envious of that, they are not getting the attention from their representatives that they deserve.
And I'm glad that you said that, because one should not be faced with the choice of living in a rural community of their choosing versus having to live in a city just to provide broadband internet. And as an educator, how important it is to have high speed, quality, and affordable internet connections.
Yes, and even in our urban areas, we have kids who do not have access to broadband internet, and so what happens is they end up spending their evenings at the Starbucks or an internet cafe in order to get their assignments and to do their work, and that's not right. And in this country, we have the resources, we have the intellect, we have the technical know-how to solve this problem if we just put our minds to it.
One of the other areas that I know that you have a particular interest in is equal voting access. Would you expand on that for us?
On January 6th of 2021, while Senator Lankford was expounding on how we should overthrow election results in Arizona and voting that way, he votes no on all expansion. The Constitution, Scott, as you know, is an ever-expanding document for expanding our rights. It did not originally give voting rights to everybody in the country, and we have worked for the 230 some odd years to expand voting access for African Americans, for women, for the Indian community, for now teenagers 18 and over. So the Constitution is very clear. If you're 18 and a citizen, you're eligible to vote. You have we don't make people vote. It's not mandatory, but I feel like it's a moral obligation of citizenship. And we need to encourage people. Oklahoma is one of the bottom states in voter participation.
Yes.
We don't vote. And the reason I think we don't vote is people, first of all, don't think their vote counts. And they do not think that when a state is so tilted in one direction or another that they can make a difference. And I am of the opinion that only by voting do you make a difference. And we must get people out to vote.
One of the things that we tell people all the time because oftentimes I hear my vote doesn't count, I'm just one person, but then I can show them in many communities where a House or Senate seat in the state is decided by a handful of votes. And so every vote really does matter. And I appreciate the emphasis that you're putting on that. You mentioned rights that are not enshrined in the Constitution. As you pointed out, there is no provision in the Constitution for African Americans to vote, for example, or women, or anyone who doesn't own property. But we have moved beyond that.
Mhm.
Now, here we come to a time when the leaked memo from the Supreme Court indicates that they are about to overturn Roe versus Wade. The problem with that, as I see it, is that it's not a singular issue. If the reasoning is that it's not enshrined in the Constitution, then what other rights are at risk of being stripped away from us?
Well, that's a good observation, Scott. If we carry Roe versus Wade being gutted or repealed or reversed, whichever term you want to use, we will also be opening up a repeal or gutting of Griswold, which is, of course, as you know, the right to privacy in acquiring birth control.
Right.
We will also be opening up marriage rights. There's nothing in the Constitution that says people have to get married or can't get married. And therefore, if it's not in the Constitution, it's not, you can overturn it. Well, marriage rights, gay marriage rights, interracial marriage rights, any marriage rights. And, I say to my Republican friends, if you think this is only irritating Democrats, if you think that this is only affecting Democrats, you're just dead wrong, because it affects all of us. It affects every family. It is not just Democrats who care about birth control, who use birth control. I mean, I was in the fight for Roe versus Wade back when Roe versus Wade was started, and we marched and we did everything we could to make it a right in this country that women's reproductive choices belong with the individual woman. And that's been the law for 50 years. And now we're in danger of losing that altogether. And states like Texas and Oklahoma will completely eradicate all the progress that we've made as far as women having some autonomy over their body and their decision making. I believe that women are smart, Scott. I believe that
do
they're
too.
capable. I believe that they are well in tune with what is best for their own lives. And therefore, I trust women to make that decision. Now, Senator Lankford and his friends do not trust women to make that decision. They think they are the only people that are capable of making that decision. And therefore, that is why these things, the leaked decision is based on some guy from the 1700s or 1600s who didn't like women either.
Yes.
What I'm saying is that we are perfectly capable of making these decisions, and the Supreme Court should not reverse Roe v. Wade. I'm afraid they're going to. I'm pretty sure they're going to. And then we will start. And I will be more than honored to join a whole new generation of women and men who realize that reproductive choicing and reproductive freedom is the only way economically they may grow, as a family they may grow, and as a community and a society that we may grow. And therefore, we'll fight it again.
Joe, I'm so glad that you mentioned men in that, because this is not just a women's issue, because this affects families.
Absolutely.
And, one of the things that I find most disturbing in Oklahoma, and there are many things with our laws and our lawmakers here, but when I read that Oklahoma is the worst place in the country for women, that deeply saddens me. I look at my mother and before she died, how involved she was in society. She worked, she was married, she had children, and to know that other women in other circumstances may not be nearly as fortunate. And so if you're having to work 3 jobs, it's very hard to be a mother to your children. When we look at maternal mortality rates for Black women, we are the worst in the nation. More women die in childbirth, more Black women die in childbirth in Oklahoma than anywhere else. That's horrifying to me. So I'm anticipating that your push for greater rights for women does not end with reproductive rights. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely not. First of all, economics, I mean, family planning affects your economic situation, whether you're married, it is a determinant on economics. We need equal pay for women. We need, and as Democrats, we believe we need to raise the minimum wage. The minimum wage is the way to make sure that women, as well as the poor, I mean, I'm not, it are kept economically disadvantaged.
Yes.
We believe that, um, as Democrats, that we need to strengthen our unions. The PRO Act that is sitting in Congress, not supported, of course, by any of our Republican legislatures,
No.
but I would support it because when we killed unions with right to work, we decimated the middle class. We just stabbed it.
Mm-hmm.
And we know, and you know, Scott, you've been here and I've been here a long time, that union jobs are better paying jobs.
With better
And it takes
protections
like
and
2
better
or 3
benefits.
regular jobs to equal a good union job. And to have it so that employers, especially very rich employers, can keep workers from organizing is shameful. And so I would support the passage of the PRO Act. In fact, I'd co-sponsor it and jump up and down for it. It is absolutely essential. We need for women to be able to make money with good jobs, to be able to make their family planning decisions, whatever they are, and for them to be considered equal members of our society. And to have, I think it was Senator Tim Scott the other day saying that he didn't trust Black women to make family planning decisions, I thought, well, I was going to come through my computer at him because it's just not true. It's just demeaning. It's not fair to women to regulate their life in an effort to control them.
Absolutely agree. Thank you for that. And I appreciate your passion. I want to look at one of the other things that you have been vocal about. As you know, our present governor, and hopefully very temporary governor, has been at odds with our tribal citizens since the beginning of his tenure. He has fought them at every turn and continues to go on national TV and cry about the McGirt decision. Talk to me a little bit about your feelings, and especially the folks that you're talking to in communities where they have higher Native American populations. Why fight this?
Well, because it has to do with money mostly, and power. Those are the two issues. Some people may not know, I teach Oklahoma history at Will Rogers College High School here in Tulsa. So I've become much more familiar with the truth and facts about our tribes than I ever was as a student in high school or college.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm getting real educated here. And what I have found is that at every turn where the tribes were able to start to control their own destiny, and the McGirt decision has to do with that. Once the tribal tribes began to run their own gambling or casino operations, and they were making money hand over fist, and more power to them. They began to spend money responsibly. They built hospitals, they built schools, they built roads. In their communities. I mean, I just traveled last fall to a nephew's wedding over in Arkansas, and I had to go through eastern Oklahoma to get there. And I was astonished with how good their roads are compared to some other roads that I have to travel. And I realize the tribes are taking care of their land. They are taking care of their tribes. They are taking care of their communities, whether they're overly tribal or not. They are really doing well in the conserving of their land, money, and using it for community purposes.
And if I could interject here for a moment, it's not limited to citizens of tribal nations, because
No, it's
a
not.
lot of other Oklahomans are employed by the businesses of the tribes, and so that's sharing the wealth all the way around. And so to continue to fight them,
Well,
as we've seen in this legislative session, there was a real interest in on a bipartisan interest in law enforcement working together with tribal law enforcement, and Stitt vetoed it. This
well,
is almost like a personal vendetta at this point.
the thing is, originally when this started was Governor Stitt, and I use sometimes the term kind of in a derision, but Governor Stitt wanted to renegotiate the gambling compact with the tribes. And he wanted a much bigger share, supposedly for Oklahoma, but I'm thinking he wanted a much bigger share of their income to be paid to the state of Oklahoma. Now, we know what Governor Stitt does with government money that he gets his hands on, which is vouchers and other things, but that's a whole different subject to go into. And the tribes said no. One, they said no because they're doing really well with spending their own money responsibly. And secondly, they said no because, quite frankly, I don't think they thought he was honest enough to deal with their money.
I agree with
I'm
that.
just saying, and so they said no. And he has not let up on them since that day. And he is trying in every way possible to limit their sovereignty, to get back at them in any way he can. Fortunately, the legislature has not capitulated yet to his wishes, but he certainly is putting the pressure on. And I implore all of not only the tribal nations and their leaders, but also everyone who is benefiting by this resurgence of sovereignty to say, no, we're not going to do that. And I will tell you, Senator Lankford agrees with Governor Stitt and
Yes, he
joined
does.
in the court cases that Stitt has brought against the tribes. So it's not only the governor, it is the other people in office who are trying to take what isn't theirs, make it theirs, and take it from the tribes. And we've been doing that since 1830s, actually before then, but certainly the Removal Act of 1830 was a highlight or a low light of that.
Yeah.
And we just have to stop. The tribes are doing fine, and they're doing fine for Oklahoma. And instead of trying to kneecap them, we need to cut that out and let them do the things that they feel is right for their people and their sovereignty. And so far, it has worked out very well for those communities where they are located. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you so much for that. We've talked about some very important issues that you are focusing on in your campaign. But let me ask you a question. What was it about 2022? What made you decide, okay, this is the year that I'm going to stand up and I'm going to make a case on why I should represent Oklahoma in the United States Senate?
Okay, well, if it started with 2022, I'm really, behind the eight ball. But it actually, I have never been a fan of Senator Lankford, and I don't agree with him. I can't even think of a time where he has voted for something, whether it be Supreme Court nominees down to just about anything, that I have agreed with him. But I don't agree with a lot of people, and that doesn't mean I start running for election. It was January 6th. On January 6th, I was at home because I'd taken off work to be at home because I knew something horrible was going to happen. And I watched it, and I watched him stand up on the floor of the Senate and try to overturn the votes of Arizona.
Yes.
Not the votes of Oklahoma, where he might have actually had an interest, but the votes of Arizona. And I'm watching him give this impassioned speech, and I realize that he is part of this cabal of 11 senators led by Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, but he's part of it, and he must be a very important part because they gave him the #1 speaking role.
They did.
He was first off the mark. And I thought, I was appalled. I mean, democracy is at stake, and he is on the wrong side. And of course, they attacked the Capitol, which they were already doing before he started, but and then he's running for his life, like everybody else, like all of us probably would be if suddenly a mob of thousands of people attacked our workplace. And he had a change of heart for about a week, where he said, "Oh no, I'm not going to be part of that anymore." And then he got a couple of mean tweets. And the state Republican chairman says he was going to find people to run against him. And suddenly he's back on the same track.
Yeah.
Denying democracy and voting against democracy, whether it's the John Lewis For the People Act, Voting Rights Act, or the For the People Act, or just about everything that would have helped people vote. He was against.
Yeah.
And then he topped it off with insulting the entire Black population of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and pretty much the entire country. Because when you say there is voter fraud in Atlanta, Houston, Detroit, Philadelphia, and start naming these cities, and we know that what they have in common is that they are majority Black communities, then you know that what he's saying is the only fraud that exists in this country are the people who are voting for people I don't like. And they're different. They're different than us. And therefore their votes should not count. And they should not count as much. And that's what he was saying. And then, God love him, the Black community over here said, "That's terrible. You're insulting us." And then he wrote a heartfelt letter, and I'm using heartfelt as sarcastically as I can, where he apologized to them until he got a couple of more mean tweets and everything, and then he resigned from the commission and suddenly is voting against any kind of voter reform that would allow more people to vote and making sure that less people vote, and the less people that he wants to vote are people of color.
Yes. Joe, I can't believe it, but we are literally out of time. I just want to remind our viewers that you can learn more about Jo Glenn and the positions that she is taking on critical issues at joglenforsenate.com. And Joe, thank you so much for stepping up to take on this very, very important election, and I wish you the best of luck. And thank you so much for joining us on this holiday evening.
Well, thank you, Scott, for having this kind of program. It's a step in the right direction to get more word out, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure. Bye-bye. Well, friends, we know more about Jo Glenn now than we did when this program started, and that's what this program is all about. I hope that you will consider sharing it with your friends, your family members, on your social media, because that's the way that we inform people in Oklahoma of the people that we are running to make positive change for everyone who lives in our state. Until we're together again next Monday evening at 6:30, thank you so much for being with us. On behalf of all of us at the Oklahoma Democratic Party, I'm Scott J. Hamilton, thanking you and wishing you a great week ahead. Good night.